What's up guys, my name is Ace, and for those of you guys that are interested in trying out a different Call of Duty Battle Royale, I just wanted to make a quick video today letting you know that Blackout is currently free for PlayStation Plus users. Now I did mention this in a previous video, but I decided it was worth making an entire new video about so nobody misses out on this opportunity. Basically, as long as you have PlayStation Plus, you can just go to the library, search for Black Ops 4, and for the month of July, this is completely free. So when you claim that, you now own Black Ops 4. So it's not just like a free-to-play thing this month. Once you claim it, it's yours, but you have to claim it this month. And since you're getting Black Ops 4, that means you're also getting Blackout, which is Call of Duty's first Battle Royale. Now this is also great news for those of you guys that already own Black Ops 4 and played Blackout in the past, because with it being free to play, the player count seems to have increased really significantly in Blackout, and therefore it's super easy finding lobbies. There's a good mix of players. It's not just the super hardcore players that have been playing this entire time. There's a lot of new players that are going in there and playing Blackout for the first time. So if you've ever had that thought of maybe wanting to try to revisit Blackout, now is absolutely the time to be doing it. Now, on top of letting you guys know that this is currently happening and Blackout is currently free for PlayStation users, I also just wanted to share my experiences now that I've revisited Blackout. I did a stream yesterday where I just played Blackout, and it's been a long time since I've done it, so I wanted to share my sort of updated thoughts and opinions on Blackout. Now that I've been playing Warzone for a solid year, I want to reflect on the things that I really like and miss about Blackout, as well as a bunch of the things that Warzone brought in that I really wish we could see in Blackout that I think would significantly improve the game. Because that is one big thing to keep in mind. If you haven't played Blackout before and you are somebody that's been playing a lot of Warzone, just remember Blackout was Call of Duty's first entry into the Battle Royale market, and a lot of the features that we know and love from Warzone weren't in that game. It was their first attempt at it, it wasn't perfect, and it doesn't really feel nearly as polished as Warzone going back. Having said that though, there's a lot of things that I actually prefer about Blackout, a lot of things I love about Blackout. And I think one of the main things I enjoy about Blackout is I just feel like the average player is encouraged to move around more in Blackout. I'm not talking about the people that are going for high kills and stuff like that. I'm just talking about the average player that hops on and plays. It seems like they're much more encouraged to be moving from point of interest to point of interest, and this is due to a variety of factors. The first factor is the map design. You have your points of interest where all the concentrated loot is and all the close quarters combat in the buildings, but in between each point of interest, there is a lot of open terrain where it's just hills and trees. And those trees are actually quite large, so they're actually pretty effective to be using as cover, unlike in Warzone, where you have trees that are much skinnier and harder to use effectively as cover. So that really changes up a lot of the combat. In Blackout, you tend to run into more of that open terrain style of combat, especially after the initial fights. Of course, in the initial fights, everybody's landing at a point of interest for the most part. But yeah, as you start getting mid to later game, it's much more open combat, which some people may like, some people may not. It's really up to personal preference there. But another thing I really noticed while playing Blackout is the guns tend to have very slow bullet velocity, like super slow bullet velocity. This means you have to lead your targets a lot more. You have to account for bullet drop a lot more. And what this also means is your effective engagement ranges aren't nearly as far as in Warzone with a regular full auto gun at least. I'm not talking about sniper rifles, but I'm just talking about regular full autos. I think one of the reasons people feel more comfortable moving around the map in Blackout compared to Warzone is if somebody does spot you at 100 meters away with a full auto gun, they can't just like instantly down you and delete you as long as you're moving. Whereas in Warzone, that's very realistic with the lack of recoil on the guns in Warzone, as well as the more realistic bullet velocities where at 100 meters you won't really have to lead a target a whole lot. So yeah, elements like this I feel really improve the pacing of the game. It also requires a lot more skill to be hitting those shots at longer ranges against a moving target. And while it might not be a realistic bullet velocity, I actually think it makes for more enjoyable gameplay flow and more enjoyable gunfights as well. Now additionally with Blackout, something that I at least find refreshing, I don't know if I really prefer this over Warzone, but it's refreshing after playing Warzone for a year. This is the fact that we don't have loadouts. You are limited to whatever you're able to find around the map. And this, of course, does have pros and cons attached to it. I think one of the biggest pros of this is just going to be variety. You're kind of forced to use variety because you can't always just get that exact same loadout every single game. You just have to work with whatever you find, and then as the match progresses, you're going to have more and more opportunity to be more selective about what you pick up. Additionally, I think this leads to a little bit of extra excitement, not knowing what you're going to get when you go into a match. I often find Warzone can feel stale if you end up using the same loadouts over and over again. because you don't really need to learn to master all of the other guns, whereas in Blackout, you got to learn to deal with whatever you find on the map. And I think that's refreshing. At the same time though, I do think it's technically a more consistent and competitive experience to have those loadout drops in Warzone. So it's not that I necessarily prefer one over the other all the time, I just like that it's refreshing to return to that different style in Blackout. Next up, another thing I noticed pretty quickly while playing Blackout is it seems like there is no skill-based matchmaking or very little skill-based matchmaking, especially compared to Warzone. And what this means is with every fight that you get into, you don't know if you're going to be running into a very low-skilled player or a very high-skilled player. And I find this to be exciting as well. In Warzone, if you're a very good player and you have good stats, the vast majority of gunfights you run into are going to be against above average players. It's going to be fairly rare to run into below average players. It'll still happen from time to time, but it's rare. Whereas in Blackout, it really seems like the flip of a coin. With every gunfight you get into or every situation you get into, you really don't know what you're getting into. It could be against some of the best players in the game or some of the worst players in the game. And I just like that variety overall. And one final thing that I'm really missing about Blackout, and this one might seem kind of silly, but I actually think it makes a difference with my enjoyment of the game. This is simply the art style and the vibrance of the game. There is so much color and saturation in Blackout, and as strange as it might seem, I enjoy being in this more colorful environment. I know some people will kind of laugh at that, and of course, like, this isn't as important as the gameplay design, but I really do feel like it makes a difference in my mood while playing the game by having this more colorful and some would say like cartoony environment. Obviously, that one is personal preference as well. Some people will like the more gritty, grayish environment of Warzone, but not for me. I kind of like seeing all of this color. So yeah, those are just a handful of the things that I noticed right away when I hopped back into Blackout this time that I honestly didn't even realize I was missing now that I've been playing Warzone for a year. Having said this though, there are a bunch of things with Blackout where when I went back it was like, wow, Warzone just does this so much better, and I really wish this particular feature was in Blackout. And the very first thing that I noticed, especially while playing with squads, is in Blackout, if you are playing a regular squad-based mode, not one of the special modes like the one you're seeing in the background right now, which has a built-in jetpack. Don't worry, the whole game isn't full of jetpacks. This is just one particular mode. Once you get downed and then finished, you're done. You're out. There's no coming back in that match. You have to sit there and spectate your teammates until the end, or you could just leave if you wanted to, of course. But there's no ability to buy back teammates. There's no ability to come back whatsoever in the standard modes. And I do find this to be really frustrating when you're trying to hang out and play with friends. If you just get a bad drop and you die like right at the beginning of the match, it kind of sucks because you're just now out of the fight and you have to wait for your teammates to either die or win the game. Now, to be fair, at the time that Blackout was developed and released, it wasn't a standard feature in Battle Royale games to be able to bring people back from the dead. I believe Apex Legends was the first mainstream Battle Royale, at least, that brought this feature in, and then Warzone also followed suit with the ability to buy back teammates. So in that sense, at least, I really feel like Blackout is showing its age. It's kind of a standard feature now to bring teammates back from the dead or have some ability to do that. And the fact that you can't do that in Blackout is a really big bummer. Additionally, something I always disliked in Blackout, and I was really happy to see changed for Warzone, is the armor system. The armor system in Blackout is a little bit confusing, a little bit clunky. I just don't really like how it works. In Warzone, I like that when you put an armor plate in, that effectively just adds 50 health to you. Whereas in Blackout, you have 3 levels of armor that provide a different level of protection, and what these do is they provide a percentage reduction to the damage that you receive from bullets until the armor is destroyed. Now, you can get armor plates which repair your armor, but this is a bit more of a clunky system than Warzone, and also just a more overcomplicated system compared to Warzone. I like the simplicity of Warzone's armor system, and we don't see that in Blackout. And speaking of clunkiness, there's one last feature that I wanted to talk about that I'm not really a huge fan of in Blackout, at least as a controller player, and this is the inventory management system. With Warzone, things are kept pretty simple. You don't really have an inventory. You don't have like a backpack you have to access or anything. You just pick your items up off the ground and then you have them. In Blackout, on the other hand, you actually have that inventory, so you can pick up like multiple types of grenades or other pieces of equipment or healing items and stuff, and you have to manage that equipment. You have to go into menus to select which item you want to be activated and ready to use. And I definitely understand why some people might prefer this type of a system, but with a controller at least, I just find this whole menu system to be really clunky and difficult to use quickly at least, and effectively. I think it's a different story with a mouse and keyboard because you can just really quickly, easily click on items, but it's not so easy to accurately and quickly click on items with a controller. So that's another thing I was kind of hating as I was trying to play some Blackout yesterday in comparison to Warzone. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the primary things that I noticed when I went back to playing Blackout in 2021. Overall, it's a very refreshing experience, and if you haven't given it a shot yet, or you feel like you want to try returning to it and giving it another shot since you haven't played it in a long time, now is the perfect time to do this on PlayStation at least. And of course, I'd like to hear in the comments below, what do you guys think about Blackout? What are the elements from Blackout that you prefer over Warzone, and vice versa? What are the elements that you prefer in Warzone compared to Blackout? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.